Hey everybody, Andre here, and today we are going to be talking about improvisation. And more specifically, this is free improv, the kind that I sort of have employed in my latest album of keyboard improvs, and sort of how I go about creating a lot of the music that I do make. I think of improv as it's sort of a micro version of composing a full piece. You know, you have to think of all the different elements of writing a piece of music um, that would normally take, a day, a week, a month, a year, but you have to boil it down to instant processes in your head. And I think it's a lot of fun to just sort of come up with things and do a fast-paced version of something that normally takes a lot longer to do. So I wanted to walk you through some of the different steps that I'm taking in my head as I'm doing these things. And maybe if you are interested in doing your own kinds of improvisations, this will maybe help you think about things in different ways and maybe yield some really great results for you. So the number one thing that you have to know for improvising on any instrument at all, whether it be the piano, the voice, the guitar, the tuba, whatever, you just need to remember this one thing. Don't worry about sounding good. Okay? So the moment that you just forget about how you sound, okay? It doesn't matter. That's all subjective, all right? That's not important. The most important thing is for you to create, okay? Some of the things that you create while you're improvising are going to be awful. They're going to sound terrible. They're going to sound terrible to you. They're going to sound terrible to the people around you. Some of the things that you make are going to sound great. But if you're constantly worried about sounding good, you're never going to get anywhere because you're just going to be stuck at a wall and always second guessing yourself and not allowing yourself to explore freely. The second thing that you should know about improvisation is that a lot of it is pre-planned. And it's not that I'm, thinking about creating this very specific piece and then executing a series of steps. It's not that at all. But if you have certain musical ideas beforehand, you're not going to be going blindly through the night. You're going to have some trajectory that you can follow, and you're going to be a lot more comfortable doing the things that you want to do, and you're going to be more comfortable reacting to the music that you create because you have sort of given yourself a series of things to be thinking about as you're diving into the music. Okay, the third thing, and this is a big one, improvisation is all about reaction. Reaction to, your mood, reaction to your setting, reaction to the things that you're hearing. You're gonna make a sound happen, and then you're going to have a conversation with yourself about that sound. So it's really, really important that you keep your ears open, keep your mind open, and be ready to explore how each sound creates different avenues for you. You never want to be locked in to one train of thought. Like, I'm going to sound like this kind of music. If that works for you, okay. But I really think that being as free and open to all the different creative possibilities will be really helpful. So, open mind. Okay, so we've talked about, not being afraid to sound like crap, being really aware of what's going on around you, having an ear out for things, and planning ahead. So those three things are going to be really, really helpful. So let's dive into maybe how I would approach an improv. Okay, so first step is to be present. Be in a state of mind that allows you to tune everything else out. And it's sort of interesting. I've never done this in front of a camera like this before, so it's hard to tune out the camera, but I'm going to try to pretend that you aren't here and create the initial gesture. This is the most important thing. Figure out the very first thing you're going to do. Okay, there we have it. So, our first gesture is going to be this. Terrific. D, E, G. Within that gesture, we have a second, we have a fourth, we have a third. So immediately you're thinking, okay, the different sounds that you would create in order to create a cohesive free improv, maybe you should incorporate also seconds, thirds, and fourths throughout. So make those your main intervals, perhaps, that you're thinking about. So if you have this chord, maybe another chord that has a second and a fourth and a third would be this. So now we have two different sounds that we can work with. Cool. Fabulous. So now we have one idea, and we have another idea. Totally related, but one starts on D, D, E, G, and the other one starts on F, F, G, B flat. Okay? So then maybe the thing that you should think about is, am I going to be in rhythm? Am I going to be in a steady pulse? Or am I going to be sort of free? I personally tend to be on that side of just freedom and just letting things go. But, if you have a steady pulse, you can have that ostinato going. If that's something that you're interested in, that actually sounded kind of cool. What is the scale that you end up with? So right away, just knowing, pre-planning a little bit, you have a whole world of possibilities. All right, so we have a gesture and we have an answer. And one of the things that I like to think about in terms of music in general is that in music, you have a question at the beginning of any piece. And then throughout that piece, that question either gets answered or you get more questions. So, is this question answered by this? My ear tells me that this is sort of two elements of the same concept. So perhaps the answer hasn't come yet. What will be the next thing after this? Think about it for a second. What's going on? We have a steady pulse. Slow down maybe. We're living in one very small area, so maybe it's time to branch out. Maybe some octaves. Using those same notes. And I'm just messing with the ostinato. Randomizing it a little bit. Creating an octave melodies over the ostinato using the same notes in the scale that I've created. So we've lived in this harmony for quite a while, this thing that we've created. After a certain amount of time, unless you're really devoted to having a really static harmonic world, maybe it's time to go away from it. Maybe it's time to add another harmony or another pitch center or whatever. Something that leads you forward, something that gives it a sense of progression. So going back to noodling on this. I hate that, right? I tried to do something else, but man, just having an F major chord, that sucked. That sounded like crap. But that's okay. I wasn't afraid of it. I went for it. But that didn't work, so let me try again. Ooh, that's a little nicer. Now we get to the F major chord. We just needed a bridge. So you see how these things work. So you live in a world for a little while, and then maybe it's time to go somewhere else. And maybe that's the answer to the question. The question was this. Elaboration of the question with the octaves. And then different harmonic world, perhaps, or an expansion of the same harmonic world. But it's all really cohesive. It all works together, right? Because you planned ahead to have that unified sort of world. So, question, answer. Now you think about form. You know, where are you going to go? You noodle internally here a little bit. You expand outwards into the higher range. Then you expand outwards into the lower range. You're going wider and wider. You know, you have to decide how far you can take the range. Are you going to go really spread out? For me personally, I don't know if my heart is going to tell me to go really far out, but you know, the sky's the limit. Whatever you feel is right. What I want to do now is I want to just let it go for a little while. I'm just going to noodle, and then I'm going to see how far we can stretch it. And then I'm going to try to make a mistake, and then see what happens. And it's really fascinating because you start off really close together, you expand outwards, and I'm just using the same notes. And I'm using the same exact these pitches, these 5 notes, and I'm expanding outwards, and it sounds really, you know, it's kind of soothing, right? That's the atmosphere that I'm trying to create. And you know, having these chords that work together, and then you can add notes inside of those chords that have a relation to the original idea. Remember the original idea? You had a second, you had a fourth, and you had a third. So any chord that you add later, let's take that F chord. You know, in that F chord, of course, you have 2/3. You have the F to A and then the A to C. So you have that. You can add a second in there. You can add the ninth. You can add the G. You can add a second somewhere else. You can add it anywhere, really. And then you can add a fourth, too. So you can take elements of that initial gesture and expand the things that you add later, and it sounds really cohesive. I think I played a B flat chord in there with a ninth, and it's really really familiar. It's a really familiar sound. It's a really gentle sound because it fit with that initial idea. So that's how I go about doing these improvs. I start with something small, I expand out, I try to be really cohesive, and I try to have this question versus answer sort of thing. Now I mentioned that I would try to make a mistake. So let's talk about what a mistake could possibly be. So let's say I'm in this world now. And then instead of playing an F, I play like an F sharp or something. I accidentally strike an F sharp instead of an F. These things happen. You'll play wrong notes. So what do you do? You recover, right? You just try to just embrace the wrong note. You don't want to go like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. That would be really out of the character of the gentle thing. I would say, let's sit on it. And then do it again. Whoa. Whenever you do something twice, it gives it intention. And then maybe we embrace the F sharp. We've been in a D minor world. Why not go to D major? So I don't know if that works. I don't know if that sounded good, but the moral of the story is, if you make a mistake, embrace it. Don't back away from it. Don't be like, oh crap, I just played a wrong note, and then you have to really quickly recover. Embrace that sound and see if you can incorporate that wrong note into the music. Because what was the first thing I said? Don't worry about sounding good. All right? Don't be afraid of the things that you create. Just roll with it. And the more you get comfortable with whatever instrument you're using, the better it's going to be. The more smooth these things are going to be to create. Because if you do accidentally strike a note or sing a note that's like a little off, you'll be able to take that and roll with it as part of the improv. So I think to close, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to try to incorporate a bunch of these different ideas and make something else, not that D minor thing, just something completely different, and I'm just going to riff on it for a little bit, and then we'll see what happens. Okay? So I hope you enjoy improvisation number 7,021. So again, I'm not sure if that sounded good. I'm not sure if that sounded bad. I just went for it, right? I just did it. And I recall I struck a few accidental notes. You know, I played a B at some point. I was sort of living in that, again, this D minor world that I seem to be loving right now. But I struck a B natural instead, and I thought, oh, you know, B natural, maybe I'll embrace that kind of sound and then go into this G thing. And then at some point, I think I struck an F natural. I didn't want to have a G7, but couldn't sort of make it sound a little bit dreamier. I don't know. So just going with the flow, but having a little bit of pre-planning in advance. Like I knew I wanted to have this kind of the kind of ostinato going. So that was the initial idea behind it. So I hope that this sheds some light into my thought process a little bit, and maybe this will help you, you know, think outside the box, maybe, or think about your own improv or composition in some different way. And I hope this was useful, and I hope that you keep tuning in for these different kinds of videos that I'm making. Thanks for all your support, and I hope you have an awesome day.